All right. So once you've got yourself your project set up in GitHub and Godot, then really you can start working. But before you start building and designing, I really recommend sitting down and kind of figuring out what kind of game you want to make. And I'm going to give you a kind of a demo game to play with and try at the beginning because I think you're going to want to try this a couple times. And so might as well do a pretty simple small game to begin with, so you're used to this collaborative design feature. And at the beginning, you may just want to sit down with your partner or group or whatever it is and just kind of sketch out what you want to design and what you want to build. Talk a little bit about it. And you can also even start this off with some partner programming where you're sitting next to each other. In this case, I'm just going to draw out my little screen here and have a look at that and figure out that I'm going to do a little drop game. So pretty classic style game where we've got you usually some kind of player on the bottom here. I don't know, they've got a container or something, a bucket or something like that. And you've got some, oh, you know what? I'm going to move that up for reasons we will see later. Little bucket there. And then you've got some stuff that kind of randomly drops from the sky, and your job as the player is to move side to side trying to collect the things. And if they hit the ground, usually lose some points or you could die or what have you. In this case, I want to collect all the things and then I want to keep score of how many I've gotten. And rather than putting it to the top, because then your objects are going to fall through your score, I might put like a ground here and then have something like score down there. So really a basic idea of a game, pretty simple, and then you can start adding to it and tweaking it, and making it your own. But looking at this, we realize there's some main ideas or main objects in here. So I'm going to need a player. Let's put that there. And I like to break up some of these big ideas into the smaller things because remember, when we're collaboratively developing, we want to be able to have all of these small bits so each person can work on something and avoid stepping on each other's toes. So I've got a player here that's going to be moving around. I've got some kind of collectible that's going to be falling from the sky. I'm going to need some kind of score board, scorekeeper that's going to get programmed. And then I'm going to need something that's going to create these new objects, maybe a little object up above or something like that, like a spawner um, that we're going to have. So just having a quick little design session, figuring out your game is really going to make your life go a lot easier because then you can figure out exactly who needs to do what, and you can break up this big task into lots of little ones. In this case here, now I know that I'm building a 2D game, so I'm going to switch to 2D. If you haven't already, which you probably haven't, the default of your game is usually a wide style game here because we're building it for the screen. But if we're building it for a mobile device, we're going to want to go into the project settings, into window here, and I think I've already tweaked this, but yeah, this is not your typical setting here. So I want mine not as wide as it is tall, and I've picked these dimensions because they work specifically well with our giant touchscreen. So the viewport width should be 1080, and the viewport height will be 1920. And if you haven't done it either, down here, they turn on that little resizable and make sure the viewport mode is in stretch. This will help us out if we're, say, doing it for a phone that's not quite this dimensions. And once you've done that, then you can actually see, let's see if we can zoom out a bit there. You can see there's my kind of candy bar phone shape for my design. And I'm going to, if you're brand new here, I'm just going to make, I'm going to make a basic scene. So in Godot here, like you've hopefully done in the past, we're going to make a big scene here. In this case, I'm just going to call it level 1. And I'm going to save this here, scene, save scene, and call it level 1. It should already be in the right folder. And we're good to go. We've got a level. Now we need to start building some of the things, and that's why it's really handy to have this to refer to. So I can go back and say, well, the first thing I'm going to do is make a player. And if in the past we may have just started building things right here on this level 1 scene, but as I mentioned, in collaborative design, we want to bust up into little pieces as much as we can so each person can work on a piece without stepping on somebody else's toes. So in this case, I'm going to make a new scene for my player. So I'm going to click add new scene here. And in this case, my player is going to be a character body 2D. And I'm just going to rename that one to player. Again, if you're brand new, this is just following along here. This is a specific kind of node for player that we're going to create. And I'm not going to worry too much about the graphics these days. However, I realize I've deleted the character. So let me get that sprite quickly for us. There we go, back, and I've got an icon here now that usually comes with part of your game. So here's my player. To my player, I'm going to add a sprite 2D, which is something you've probably done before. I'm just going to use the icon. I'm not going to worry about what this looks like right now. Your job is going to be make it look a lot better than mine. So there's my player, and I am going to add to that a collision shape because I can see what it looks like, but I need to know where it's solid on the outside. And this is going to be a rectangle here, and I'm going pretty quick, but luckily you're on YouTube here. You can pause and rewind and do whatever you like to see this. And there we go. I've created my player. And if I save this scene, it's going to come up as the root node name, save scene, and you're good to go. Now, one more thing here. I guess we actually need some programming and some code on this. So I am going to add some basic coding to this so I can get the player moving and see if it works. And then maybe we'll integrate these in the next video here. But I'm going to add a script or attach a script. I do not want the character body basic movement. This is for a jumping, bouncing kind of guy. So I'm going to go to the default and player.gd. That's a great one. I'm just going to hit create. And up comes our programming. And yeah, I'm just going to have this kind of character moving left and right by pressing the arrow keys or something. So another thing you're going to have to set up early on is under your project settings, an input map. Now I did this earlier, so let me get rid of that. So right now we have to figure out how we're going to control our character. And we do this in Godot called actions. I'm going to make a left action for moving left, and I click add. Now what we get to do is assign what keys or what happens to make this move left. And it could be a keyboard or a mouse or what have you. But if you press this little plus button here, it's listening for it. So I can just tap the left key and you'll see it pops up. And then hit OK and say, well, to move left, I want to do that. But also, if I was, say, more handy with my left hand, I could press A as well. So both of these keys are going to trigger a left event. And then I'll do the same thing for right. And I add that. And then press the right arrow, and we're good to go there. And then hit that little plus button again and press D. For WASD keys. So now I've got a left and right movement set up. Perfect. So here we are. Let's get this movement going. Under my function process, I'm going to say if input dot is action pressed. So if I'm pressing a particular action, and you'll see up comes those two that I just made, left or right. So if I'm pressing a key that triggers the left action, then I'm going to move to the left, which is a velocity dot x. My velocity in the x direction equals, to the left is getting smaller, so I'm going to say minus, let's try minus 10 here. And then I want to go right as well, so I do an elif. Elif input dot is action pressed. And in this case, the right key. You notice how Godot tries to help me out. Then velocity.x equals 10. And finally, if I'm not pressing either of those, else I would like to stop. Otherwise, my character is going to just keep moving and moving and moving. Velocity.x equals 0. There we go. And lastly, once that's done, now all of this does is just sets the speed. It doesn't actually go there saying, well, when I move, I want to move at -10, or when I move, I want to move at 10 here. I then need to say, do the movement. So that is move and slide. And if we were to save this and play it right now, let's play my scene with this little run current scene button up here. You're going to get that character, and if I press left, oh, I am moving but really, really slow, and move right but really, really slow, and when we let go, it works as well. That's clearly too slow, so a -10 obviously is not a great one. But like we may have learned last year, it's way nicer, especially when you're developing with other people, is to make a variable at the top of our move speed, I'll call it. And let's make it, I don't know, 150. Go a lot faster than I was. So now down here, instead of moving 10 and figuring out where we're all the numbers where we're moving, I just have to say, I want you to move at negative move speed, which would be negative 150 at the moment. And move to the right is move at move speed. And if we now play, and now you have one spot, and everybody who's a designer who knows this just has to look right there. And oh, that's a little bit better there. Perfect. Now, we're clearly not in the right spot, but we have just created a scene. And the whole idea here is that we have got now a player scene. And if you go and check out your collaborative game here, you can see all the files that are being created. Even just with that player, we've got our level 1, we've got our player scene. We also even have the player script. They are all completely separate files, which means 3 different people could be working on each one of these without stepping on each other's toes, without much risk of merge conflicts later on. You can have a coder working on one thing. You can have a node designer working on another one, and you can have somebody doing graphics. You can have people bringing all these different stuff in, so that you're not in conflict. And that's one of the reasons why we try and keep everything separate. So now I have a level 1. It's got nothing on it, but I have the player as a completely separate scene. I could also have a player team, like somebody whose job is to do all the things about the player, and then somebody's job is to do all of the level design, and then someone's job is to get all of the resources. How you break up your tasks is going to be kind of up to you and your team. But let's look at our integration and building some more things in our next video. There's a quick little start. We have a moving player, but they're not on our scene, on our level yet. Tell you what, I've got a minute or two left. Let's bring this player in so that they can be part of the scene. But remember, you could then edit the player individually. And if you're brand new, this is called instantiating. We take one scene and we bring it into another as a node. That's that little link button right here, instance a child scene. And I can click the player and I say, I want to bring the player in. And up comes the player there. And I could bring him in. I'm going to put him right here because I've got a small screen that I'm trying to record this on. But now the player, its own scene, is on level 1. So I could be the level 1 designer, or I could be the player designer, and I'm not going to interfere with the other person. And you can see here, I'll probably bring that up a little bit, but there is my little Godot player, and I can imagine things going to be dropping from the skies very soon and collecting them. But that will be in our next video.